Ladies, gentlemen, and others, welcome to the third episode of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where we take the characters from Welcome to the Show and we rank them against each other to see who the most popular characters are. As always, this is directly inspired by Thor Skywalker's excellent Battle of the Heroes and Villains Star Wars series, and let's get into it, as this time we'll be talking about the villain-turned-hero Arkoth Wormwood. And he managed to get a surprisingly even score of an exact 50% of voters giving him an A, and the other half giving him a B, which, when you put it all together and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, gives him a total of 4.5, which ranks him currently third behind Amber and Jalarum. And now let's get to your comments, starting with one from Noid Brightclaw. I think I'd give Arkoth an A. He was the first villain introduced to us, he did set the stage for Simula to come on after it, and he had some really funny moments when trying to be nice to the party. And I have to admit, his redemption scene had me crying. For the first time in the series, I cried.
Darth Revan 226. Arkoth went from a guy I hated to a guy I adored, especially loved his redemption. He had done great evils, but ultimately chose to better himself, not just for his own sake, but for his daughters. I have seen many redemptions in media, but this is one of my personal favorites, and, not going to lie, I legitimately cried when he got his reward. I give him an A.
Next we have a comment from Ace of Flames. I give Arkoth a B. I enjoyed his character a lot. He made a very big impression in the first session with his absolute insistence of having complete control, how he slapped Faye and asked her to thank him for it, and his callous murder of the Blink Dog and Jenkins when things didn't go his way. He was certainly one of the single figures that terrified the PCs the most. His redemption arc in relationship with Hana in Season 3 was also very strong and heartwarming, and his final redemption and his final talk with Hana is one of my favourite moments in the show. I only give him a B because, at least to me, he lost a bit of his intimidating aura when he found out in Season 2 that half of the evil stuff he did was actually Owen and Simula framing him, though he was still the one behind Vizitoff. Because of this, I don't feel like he's at the same level as the PCs, almost all of whom I'd give A's, though I definitely think Arkoth is just below the A line. The stuff he does have is really good, and I definitely think Arkoth is among the best characters Welcome to the Show has to offer.
Dragon Master 77. I voted A. Arkoth, in my mind, had one of the best redemption stories in the series. If I were to compare him to a character, I will say one that fits is Transformers Armada Starscream. Loyal to Simula only to suffer betrayal and ultimately goes onto a path to good, and then makes a sacrifice to protect those he cares for. In his case, sacrificing his quest to slay the archdevils to protect Hana. I am happy to see he got a redemption story.
Creative Burst writes, Arkoth is a hard one. Owen impersonated him in Season 1 and 2 in the dreams of the party, and that is what really defined him as a villain. Just did a good job of using it when showing his later actual evil acts. What I think is most important came in Season 3, him trying to be a good father to Hana and his eventual redemption. He's a great character, but since a lot of his early characterization came from Owen, I'm giving him a B. And for those of you who don't know, during the first 2 seasons, a lot of Arkoth's characterization came from him supposedly haunting the characters in their dreams, tormenting them, attacking their weak points, and showing a lot of cunning as well as a vicious, sadistic personality. As it would turn out, though, this was not Arkoth himself, but rather an illusion of Arkoth created by one of the party members in order to keep the party afraid of Arkoth and relying on him, the only person who could apparently confront the Arkoth in his dreams. In reality, because he created the illusion of Arkoth. Because of this, much of what was believed to be true about Arkoth was, in reality, a falsehood, an impression of Arkoth created by Owen rather than the villain himself, which, for a lot of people, learning that dropped him down in the rankings a bit.
Behemoth writes, I'll give Arkoth an A. At the beginning, he was a loyal soldier, then his relationship with Simula sent him down the path of villainy, which had him fuse 2 dragons into one amalgamation. Oh, hi FMA. And in the end, all that and the fact that Simula had him as the appetizer for the final phase of her plan got him killed. When he was in Bator, he was trying to redeem himself, and even though it took years, he earned it. Like the others, I was brought to tears when he did that noble deed and ascended to heaven / not Celestia.
Magical Dude writes, Arkoth went from the feared warden who seemed to have even bested Simula before she turned the tables, to being the loving and remorseful man who was Hana's father. He was an honest man the 9 levels and worked hard to get his redemption. He was a good father to Hana and earned his right to heaven. I just wish him and Hana got a better goodbye. Arkoth is how you do a redemption. You do shitty things, get punished, and then work hard to better yourself. He gets an A.
Alicia Lanet writes, I gave Arkoth an A. He was placed as the first villain for our heroes to overcome. That was until it became evident Simula was actually the puppet master of him. Then Azzy got involved, along with Ravis. As the first obstacle, he was intimidating, and before we learned Owen was behind the nightmares, there appeared to be nearly nothing he couldn't do and was just toying with them. Then his betrayal from Simula, and the party finding him in hell trying to redeem himself with caring for Hana. He was trying, but it wasn't until he began traveling with the party did he come into truly being redeemed, and it was so sad. I still tear up at it. He shows the gods he's changed, but that means also leaving behind his little girl, who was given a chance at life by those gods. An excellent villain who at heart was a good soldier following orders with a good heart under his steel armor.
M. Dawson 4705 writes, I gave Arkoth a B. His redemption arc was amazing, and it was very intimidating in Season 1. However, what puts him at B tier for me is his action, or lack thereof, in Season 2. He created Visitor, he power-well killed Jalaran, and that's it. Had he actually been responsible for the nightmares, I would have easily given him an A, as those are gold! But he wasn't. We didn't spend much time with him while he was still a villain, so he is eclipsed by the 2 amazing villains we got in Simi and Ravis. Additionally, I thought he could have participated a little more in the mansion scenes. Still, he was able to preserve not only Hana's safety, but also her innocence while in battle. That is impressive. And before we get to a comment by William himself, I gotta say that I kind of agree. When you actually look at what he did as a villain, you realize he had very little real presence throughout the first 2 seasons when he was a villain. It was believed that he had been tormenting the heroes in their dreams, but it turned out that was just an illusion created by Owen. It was believed that he had overthrown Simula and taken over as a big bad, but that was just a ploy by Simula to lure the heroes into a false sense of security. Everything else that he actually does, yes, he's intimidating in the first season, but that was when the party was all level 1. By that point, it felt like the party had massively outgrown Section 1 Arkoth, and while his creation of Visitov was horrifying, that was, again, Stimulus' plan. When you actually look at Arkoth as a villain, he had very little presence and was ultimately just a puppet, just another tool to be used by Simula, a blunt instrument with very little cunning or ambition of his own. His character was very much saved by his redemption arc and by the performance that Josh gave, which added a lot of personality to an otherwise flat character in terms of just what his role gave him. And now, in complete contrast to everything I've said, here's William Beasley with his own comments. Take it away.
I'm about to open all of your eyes to the truth. A. Arkoth is my all-time favorite character in Welcome to the Show. He was such a great villain in the first session, unsettling every PC and being able to be a figure they can all unite under through disgust. It's no wonder Owen chose him to be the vessel of his nightmares on the party. It's a while until we actually see Arkoth again in the show after Chapter 1, but once he does finally reappear, it is in the most horrifying scene in the whole series, in my opinion. The creation of Vizitov shook me to my core, and what absolutely shattered that core was Arkoth's famous line, "I am no monster. I am now a god." The next time we see him is in the arena, where the thing that has been built up since Chapter 1, the assault on Direction, climaxes in the party's battle with him, and he isn't some big build-up with weak payoff. He is actually giving the heroes of Geminia a good run for their money, and even kills Jalarum and turns him into a zombie soldier. But we all know the main reason Arkoth is the absolute greatest of all. It's his Season 3 appearance. We're introduced to a man who has spent the last 13 years striving for redemption against the atrocities we saw him just commit, as well as care for the child we all thought was lost. Seeing how different party members interact with Arkoth, and how he integrated himself into the party, was my absolute favorite thing in the show. Especially his relationships with Ravis, Jalarum, and Rose. But his relationship with his daughter Hana is by far my favorite relationship in the campaign. Every time Arkoth was part of a scene in Season 3, I wanted the scene to keep going, and going, and going, and going, and his ultimate redemption on Maladomini was just such a perfect scene.
Thank you very much, William. Misty Phantom writes, I gave him an A. Like I said, he was arguably one of the best redemption arcs I've ever seen. He was a very intimidating character upon introduction and kept up that intimidation until it was found out that he wasn't the main villain behind the plot to unleash all of Bata upon the mortal plane. In actuality, he was just as much a puppet and a victim as the party was, because Simula used him for his loins and because he was a desperate man. After his death, he was given one chance to redeem himself, and he had to ask the people he tormented to help give him a second chance. Even though he was sincere, he had to work to earn their trust, and we discovered that his and Simula's daughter survived, and he was charged with taking care of her. Ultimately, he learns that redemption came from saving and loving his daughter, and the moment we see his face for the first time was perfect. No one really got a chance to say goodbye, which is sad, but I'm glad he was able to find peace in the end.
Ripple Effect MLP writes, I'm giving Arkoth Wormwood a B. He did start off as an A-rank villain, from him punching a guard just to remove a shock collar to put back on Jalarum, to killing a blink dog for the sake of carnage. His constant presence in the dreams made him interesting, and him slipping into the Dragonlands made him a genuine threat. However, that slipped away when it was revealed that Owen was the one responsible for the dreams and that Simula used him as a tool. That was when I could no longer see him as a villain. His redemption arc was a saving grace that kept him from being ranked lower than a B, but it honestly wasn't enough to return him to the A rank in my eyes.
Next, we have a comment from Kaleidoscope Dreamer. Going by the actual scale this time, Arkoth Wormwood is someone I consider a B-rank character. He really creeped me out when he was introduced, especially when it was revealed that he may have taken and even read Geminia's diary. Was that ever explained? He also acted as a great antagonist in Season 2, even after the twist. What really pushed him to B rank in my eyes was his redemption arc, being one of the most well-written ones I've seen in a while, not to mention his impact on future events after his departure. Wormwood deserves his fame and welcome to the show. P.S. Wormwood is also probably happy that Geminia never got to go through with her threat in Season 1. Yikes.
Wicked Cat writes, I put Arkoth at a B. While he was a good villain for Seasons 1 and 2, I had to remind myself that it was Owen's dreams and Simula's plan that helped build him up so much. And the 3 times he actually showed up, he was very menacing, but fell short over what Simula's personality and brutality. Honestly, I was so close to giving him a C rating until I remembered his redemption arc in Season 3. His interactions with the party were really good, and his love for Hana was truly touching. If I could, I would have given him a B-, but I'm willing to upgrade him to a B.
Of Heaven 176 writes, Arkoth Wormwood. How to rate him? Allow me to think out loud. As a villain, the reveal that the nightmares were Owen's work instead of Arkoth's means he cannot get any credit for them. At the most, it means that Arkoth was enough of a sadistic figure in Seasons 1 and 2 that it was plausible in the eyes of the party those statements were consistent with his character. Going to the things he did do, we see him as an imposing figure. When he shows up, you know that shit's about to go down. Sure, he was a simp for Simula, and on that point, may I say, given that we see in Season 3 that Arkoth's a comrade of her father's, he should have seen Simula as his niece, not as someone bangable. But it was not simply the Vader to Simula's Palpatine. So, solid B as a villain. As a hero in Season 3, we see that he tries to be a good person. He missed the mark going on a demon hunting crusade instead of ensuring that Hana could grow to be a well-rounded young woman, or as well-rounded as a person could be in Bartor. However, he was an asset to the party and earned his redemption. Solid B. So, in general, he was a good villain who went through a believable redemption arc. There are some things that keep him from being a solid A as a villain and as a hero, so yeah, in the overall analysis, B.
Jay Yoshi writes, Unfortunately, I was heavily spoiled on a lot of Arkoth's character and history due to where I started watching and from willfully reading the TV tropes pages. Heck, the very first episode I watched was his very last appearance in Season 3. I didn't get too emotionally attached to or rage against him like others did. That being said, watching him with full knowledge was still a treat. His first appearance really did well to paint him as someone the party and audience is supposed to loathe. And until the plot twists, he was by far easy to perceive as a threat that absolutely needed to be pacified. While he was revealed to not be as vile as everyone initially thought, being that he had nothing to do with the nightmares, and what happened between him and Simula was completely consensual and part of the plan, simply following along with Simula's plan willingly and carrying out her orders without hesitation definitely still makes him vile on multiple levels. Blindly binge-watching Season 3 as I did unfortunately also removed a lot of how Blindly binge-watching Season 3 as I did unfortunately also removed a lot of how it would have been blindly watching them with weekly intervals between episodes. I blew through Arkoth's Bator arc rather quickly and was left unsatisfied, wishing it could have lasted longer. This does affect how I ranked him, but through no fault of Josh's writing, only due to my own timing, I still recognize how well he worked as a dragon. a big bad, and finally as a repentant father. Kudos to Josh for making him, and kudos to the players for keeping it going. I rank Arkoth Wormwood at AB.
Next, finally, we have a comment from Void Astralbirth. I can't think of many villains went through as satisfying a redemption arc as Arkoth the Warden Wormwood did. The moment he was truly redeemed thoroughly put me to tears. Plus, his method of killing Beelzebub to save his daughter is still in the top 10 most badass moments of the whole campaign. That being said, until Season 3, he didn't really do much that was very memorable. Like some have pointed out, wasn't really Arkoth interacting with the party in their dreams, and that honestly knocks him down slightly. There are very memorable actions he committed as a bad guy, like Visitov, but other than that, in his glorious final fight in Season 2, he just came across as a decent B-level, crazy and brutal figure of villainy. Although, maybe I should give him a few extra ones that truly epic Season 2 fight. It's now affiliate the King Bowser theme from Super Mario Galaxy with the evil Arkoth. And yeah, that's a great theme and it was used exceptionally well. Anyway, that's all there is for this character, and before we leave off, I'll ask if William has any final comments, but one thing I'd like to comment on myself, which I find interesting but also very telling. In the first 2 seasons, he was most commonly known as the Warden. But by Season 3, most people now refer to him as Arkoth. It kind of shows that in the first 2 seasons, he was a thing, a tool, a presence, more of a figure than a person. But Season 3 made us really connect with Arkoth, the person behind the role. The man inside the armor. Any thoughts from you, William?
I do have thoughts, but I'm going to be saving them for the section on Arkoth in my top 25 characters video on my channel whenever I get around to finishing that.
Of course. In any case, thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And please pay attention to the polls, because next time we will be looking at Faith Theory. Links to the polls are in the description, as well as links to the campaign itself. Have fun, everyone. See you next time.